Well, there's actually several things the Economist Award means to me and our organization. And firstly, I think it's probably the first time in the Economist history that they've given an innovation award to a garbage man. I think I know why. I think we're pretty innovative garbage men. It's really been a 20-year journey, literally starting from a garage in California to now the world's most advanced company recycling plastics, and in a space we essentially created. And to me, the Economist Award in particular means a lot because it speaks to both of the things that we think we bring to the world. And that's building a sustainable business, and sustainable in the sense of the environment and sustainable in the sense of the economy. We make plastics in a much more sustainable way from an environmental standpoint and from an economic standpoint. The award also means a lot to our organization. It's been a 20-year journey, as I said. That has meant a lot of sacrifices made by not only our employees around the world, but by their families. There's been a lot of lost weekends and a lot of lost weeks in the lab, in the plants, bringing this innovation to the world. And this award really means a lot to them to show that it's really been worthwhile. In the case of our company, we've basically been trying to reinvent one of the largest industries in the world, the plastics industry. And that in and of itself is no easy task. It's a $500 billion industry worldwide. It's one of the biggest in the world. And they've got very entrenched ways of doing things. We felt that we could make plastics in a much more economically sustainable and environmentally sustainable way, and we set out to prove that almost 2 decades ago. So just taking on such a large industry of its own requires a lot of innovation. We basically had to break down the plastics business at every single aspect of the business and figure out ways we could do it more efficiently. Starting with raw materials. Instead of pumping oil out of the ground from the planet, we actually recover our raw materials from the waste stream. So that's an economic advantage and an environmental advantage. And because we're starting with very complicated waste streams, we had to be extremely innovative on how to recover those plastics. No one had ever tried to do that before, so we actually had to invent the technology to make that possible. That required incredible innovation, not only in the invention of the technology, but to keep those processes more economical from a process standpoint, an equipment standpoint, and also an operating cost standpoint. So we're much more capital efficient because of our innovation. It takes much less to build one of our plants from a capital standpoint, and our operating costs are much lower. And just one dimension of that is energy. We only require 10 to 20% of the energy to make our plastics compared to a virgin plant. So we've applied innovation at every step of the process, and finally, even with our customers. We coach our customers on how to not only use our recycled plastics in their products, which makes them more sustainable, but we teach them how to design their products so when they reach end of life, they'll be more recyclable at that point. Well, I think it's crucial that organizations support and encourage innovators. I'll give you a personal example I had. Before I started my company, I worked for very large organizations, some of the biggest in the world. And the last company I worked for was one of the largest plastics companies in the world. And I went to them and said, I want to start a recycling business. I think it's good for the company. It's going to be the future of growth for our industry. And basically what they said is, we're not going to create a business that's competitive with our existing businesses, sorry. So I think they lost out on a big innovation. In fact, I like to refer to them Michael Dell's words, which say, cannibalize your own business before someone else does. Well, they didn't get it then. And now we're innovating outside of that space. I had to form my own company in order to do what I wanted to do. And in retrospect, I have to say we were probably both right, because that was 17 years ago. So it took me 17 years to get to where I am today. But we are here, we are innovating, and we're creating a new type of plastics company. And now we see those same companies struggling to reinvent themselves into more sustainable businesses, not only for marketing and customer traction standpoints, for the green marketing aspects, but for economic aspects. They feel to survive, they really need to become more sustainable businesses. So it's crucial. It was crucial in the case of big businesses I work for, and I think it's also crucial in small companies like ours. Well, I think in my case, the reason I became, I think, a successful innovator, I hope a successful innovator, were many-fold. It's probably the environment I grew up in. It was okay to try out new things. And I think from day one, I sort of had this drive to reduce waste. I don't know where it came from, I don't know why I have it, but I sort of had this single focus mission. I used to turn the lights out behind my parents when they'd leave the room. It used to drive them nuts because they'd only be out for 30 seconds. And I can tell you my wife and kids these days still yell at me for turning the lights out behind them. So I've taken this drive of reducing waste and I've applied it to something I know a little bit about and in a field I've been trained in, namely plastics engineering and polymer science. And I think that's the key to any innovator's success, is to take a passion that they have and apply it to something they know about or something they can make a difference. And I think as long as you have a passion and you apply that passion, I think you're going to be a successful innovator. I think if you look at how many innovations are brought to the marketplace, it's done either by a driven individual or a driven small group of individuals focused on a task. However, I think they would not have been successful had they not been open to ideas and also understood what was needed in the marketplace and in the world as a whole. So I think from a crowdsourcing standpoint, I think it's extremely important that innovators listen to other ideas, do brainstorming activities, and they also listen to the world around them for what are the real needs. Innovation in a vacuum doesn't really work. But it seems to me, at least, that for the innovation process to succeed, it's much easier to do it for a driven individual or a small group of individuals. It's really hard to get a very large group of people, and I think this is some of the problems that large companies and large organizations suffer from. It's very hard to get a large organization all rowing the same way. So I think that's why at the early stages, I think crowdsourcing is an excellent way to focus what the innovation should work on and what people need, and also to gather ideas. But I think when you want to take that innovation and develop it and bring it to the market, I think small focus groups seem to work the best. The big innovations of 2020. Well, I hope I'm wrong and I hope others are wrong, but I think the planet Earth is going to see a lot more demands on it. I think as the population grows, as we see developing world wanting to adopt Western lifestyles and dare I say our wasteful lifestyles with respect to our consumption behavior, there's going to be more demands placed on every natural resource on the face of the planet. And there is a finite number of resources on the face of the planet. And as an American, I think I have a duty to do something about this. Americans represent only about 5 or 6% of the world's population, but yet we consume 25% of the world's everything. We can't afford another America's consumption behavior in the world. So the world, the developed world in particular, I believe has to figure out how to do more with less. And I think the only way to get there is through innovation.